So, all right. So, Aphrodite Jones, geez, have been in true crime. You were doing books before I was. So, in the 80s, right?
In the 90s.
In the 90s.
Yeah.
So you started in the 90s and you had some big, huge books. And so now this new book, is it a re-release? Did you update it and all of that? And tell me about it. So,
Okay. Well, let me say first, thank you for having me on. A big fan
sure,
of yours.
of course.
And so with this,
Likewise.
thank you. This book is an unusual thing because I got the rights back from HarperCollins many years ago and never did anything with it. And then over time, as true crime has exploded, I started thinking about, you know what? That book had the wrong title. It didn't tell you what the story's about. And it also went down too many rabbit holes because we get into the story. There's these two crazy lawyers. They represent a number of Aryan Brotherhood inmates and prison guards, and they got so involved in all these crazy cases that it's trying to get money out of the California Department of Corrections. And the original book, I went down all those rabbit holes. There were 5,000 pages of documents with all these crazy cases. And I realized, you know what? Let me just edit out the rabbit holes, make it sleeker. Well, don't ask a writer to rewrite. You know better than anybody, right? What a dumb thing that was for me to do. Because I didn't take out rabbit holes. I rewrote the entire thing, soup to nuts, except perhaps for the first chapter. And even that, I
And you
kind of
added
chiseled.
rabbit holes.
I added it, right. I
Well,
sure did. I
well,
went
why
down
don't
the rabbit hole for a whole
give
year rewriting it.
give me the bare bones of the story, how it begins, etc.
Okay.
Because it's a big, large case.
Yes, it is. So this is a story about not Diane Whipple, who was the sacrificial lamb who was killed by two dogs in San Francisco. This is a story about the Aryan Brotherhood leader who was able to manage to start a dog breeding ring called Dog O War. And that's why I called the title of the book. How did this happen? You want me to give you the whole essence or?
Well, as much as you want, that can entice people to want to learn more about it. It's like I say, this was a if we think of big cases today, I mean, everything seems to become a big case if it gets in the news today.
Mhm.
But back in the day, back in 2000, 2001, I mean, the dog mauling case was huge.
Was huge, but yet it's funny that people don't really know the case, and that's because no one's
Right,
written about it other than myself. And this was
right.
why I thought I had to bring this out now. Um, okay, so here's what happened. The woman Diane Whipple is gay, and her partner, she and Diane live in an apartment in Pacific Heights, which is a ritzy part of San Francisco. One day she comes home with groceries. This is January 26, 2001. And as she's trying to get into her apartment door, two gigantic dogs from her next door neighbor are in the hallway and they go for her and they kill her. And they literally ripped every shred of clothing off of her.
Wow.
And the owner, Marjorie Noller,
Uh
was
huh.
there watching it. And she claimed she got involved and tried to stop it, but she had nothing on her. There were no bites, there were no nothing. She
Right.
had blood because she carried her dogs or pushed her dogs back in her apartment. This is a woman who has zero feeling. How do we know this? She literally took her dogs into her apartment and walked over the still living body of Diane Whipple, who's got 77 bite wounds and blood coming from the jugular, walked over her to get her keys, go back in
Damn.
her apartment. She
Damn.
did not even call 911. Another neighbor called 911.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the setup. That's the murder, if you will. That's the
It became a murder.
right. So at first, it just looks like these two dogs mauled this woman, sadly, and it's left at that. Now, how does it turn into a murder case?
Okay, so now after the mauling, okay, something horrible happens with these two people. They, Marjorie Noller and Robert Noel, are two attorneys who are bullies, to say the least. And they don't want to take responsibility for the actions of their dog and dogs. And they want to save Hera, the female dog. They don't allow her to be put down. Now, your dogs just killed your next door neighbor in cold blood, but you want to save one of them? Okay. They fought for that for a long time to save Hera, and there was a vicious animal dog hearing in San Francisco, whereby there turns out there were like 30, between 30 and 40 encounters with these dogs where dogs were frightening people, biting dogs, biting, going after the mailman. All these people testified at the dog hearing, and because they wanted to save Hera, that's the female dog, and they had the audacity to blame everybody else that testified and called them all liars. They're lawyers, da da da, and so this starts snowballing. But right after Diane Whipple was killed, this is the big thing. They drive up to the gates of Pelican Bay State Prison, which is a supermax up in Crescent City, the tip of California. And they hold a press conference outside the gates of Pelican Bay. Everybody, media is following them at this point. Huge story. Diane Whipple had just been killed, to announce that they've adopted the Aryan Brotherhood member, Paul Schneider, as their son.
That's bizarre.
Yes.
That is
And
bizarre.
So it's bizarre. So once they did that, now everybody's looking like, what the heck is what Aryan Brotherhood? They didn't say it was Aryan Brotherhood, but everybody finds out because Robert Noel is so arrogant. He writes a 10-page letter to the DA of San Francisco at the time, Terrence Hallinan, explaining that it's not Diane Whipple. It's probably her fault. She wore perfume. We want it checked. We want her medicine cabinets checked for perfume, for steroids, for this, for that, because Diane was a lacrosse coach and athlete, 33 years old, strong woman. And that was it. They're blaming the victim.
Now, who is the legal owner of the dog?
Okay, so here's how this worked. They go on Good Morning America. The media is now all over this. Like, what is the Aryan Brotherhood? What's going on?
Yeah.
And they go on Good Morning America. Elizabeth Vargas is interviewing them, and she asks about responsibility. And they say, responsibility? No. We don't own the dogs. We're fostering the dogs. They're not our dogs. And, the news anchor saying, you don't take any responsibility for what happened to your next door neighbor? No. And they're blaming her. She must have done something to attract Bane, is the name of the male dog, and Hera, the female, must have done something to attract Bane, whatever perfume she's wearing, we don't know. And they're doubling down, tripling down on the fact that they don't own the dogs, and in any event, they're not responsible. And that lack of remorse, and that between that and the press conference up at Pelican Bay, and a letter written to the DA, which indicates that these dogs belong to Paul Schneider, guess what? Now, ultimately, you have three agencies. The California Department of Corrections has their own agency of law enforcement, obviously San Francisco PD, and the DAI, the DA's investigators. Three organizations are working together to figure this out, and they are able to get the judge to open up the confidential legal mail between Noller and Schneider. And in it, they find a slew weird drawings, weird pictures, weird references to bestiality. They're a family of three. They see that they're taking pictures and with this guy and pretending he's at the table with them with champagne glasses for their quote son. And they all of a sudden they realize that these people are associates of the Aryan Brotherhood.
And so, is there a motivation behind this murder? I mean, was it?
No. I mean, the murder. She was charged with second-degree murder. He was charged with manslaughter. Interestingly, when the prosecutor brought this to the grand jury, they were only going for manslaughter because no precedent for this. They don't want to overcharge.
Right. I remember that being there's no precedent. I mean, this has really never happened before.
Never happened. So But the grand jury, after hearing everything, wanted to charge her with second-degree murder.
Wow.
And they did. So they went for second-degree murder, and in the trial, I was at the trial, they found her guilty of second-degree murder. And this case established firmly what is second-degree murder. And it is not just conscious disregard for human life, but acting in a way that is so negligent that it causes the death of a person. It causes.
Right. You didn't wake up that morning expecting somebody to be killed, but you acted negligent in the fact, after the fact, whatever.
Well, in the fact, no, during the fact, because remember now, these dogs had already had incidents all over the city of San Francisco.
Right, right. Good
Up
point.
until, and Bane bit Diane Whipple on the wrist a week prior.
Wow.
So Diane is scared to death of these dogs. And of course, you know how dogs are. If they know you're afraid, and these dogs, and I got to tell you about the actual dogs though, because these are not any old dogs. These are Aryan Brotherhood guard dogs. Well, yes and no. To clarify that, yes, Paul, let me explain a little bit about the Aryan Brotherhood, first of all.
Sure, sure.
That was started in the 1960s in San Quentin because prisoners segregate themselves
Yep.
on their own.
Yep.
So there was the Black Guerrilla family, which was started in San Quentin in the 60s. The Aryan Brotherhood prison gang started in the 60s in San Quentin. There's La MA, Mexican Mafia for the Latinos. All these groups find a way to live together in prison. But the most important thing for them, Aryan Brotherhood, obviously, they're skinheads, they're Nazi tattoos, they're white supremacists, they're all about the future of white children, and, they're monsters.
Right.
With their ideology. But that's not the most important thing to them. The most important thing to them is power. How do you get power? They are a criminal organization. Aryan Brotherhood leaders, Paul Schneider and his cellmate, Del Breches, they are controlling people by finding ways to make money. And they're doing it through drug trafficking and sex trafficking.
Wow.
So now Paul Schneider comes up with the idea, I found a dog that isn't even accredited by the American Kennel Club called Presa Canario. This dog comes from the Canary Islands. It was used in ancient times to take down bulls in Spain.
Damn.
Okay.
Damn.
It's a mastiff and a pit bull on steroids.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And so when they attacked Diane Whipple, that's 240 pounds of dog that attacked Diane Whipple.
Of muscle. All muscle.
All muscle. Exactly. And huge jaws. You see the picture in the book. You'll see the picture. Bane is as large as Marjorie when she's sitting. It's larger. It's insane.
Damn.
Anyway, yeah. So you got to catch me up where I was. I forgot what I was saying.
I mean, what we were getting at was, the Aryan Brotherhood is really behind this, and they bred these dogs really as part of their cartel, if you will.
Right. So here's the thing, though. This is an unusual dog. Paul Schneider finds it, and he realizes, hey, the dog, the Presa Canario, was banned in Spain in the 1960s because it's so dangerous. It is not recognized by the American Kennel Club here. It is a dangerous dog. Now, I've met people that own a Presa Canario that is sweet. So you can't just say these are just killer dogs. No, you creating that with a dog that already has that kind of strength, that kind of muscle, that kind of
instinct.
power.
Yeah, the instinct
Correct.
in them.
The instinct.
So you're facilitating that instinct and really training them to attack.
Correct.
That's
what he wanted.
Did we ever find out what provoked the attack? Was it some of the perfumes? Was it
No.
Something she did?
No. So in the Emerald Triangle, because up North California. So you're in the area of Humboldt and that area where it's pot farms and rural. And he woos a Christian woman. It takes him months and months and months, but he does get her to finally visit him and also gets her to accept Presa Canario puppies. She is alone living with her daughter, and she's sad, and she thinks this guy's in love with her because he's a Svengali, all right? And she takes the dogs. Her name is Janet. She's in the witness protection program now, just FYI. That's how
Wow.
scary this is with the Aryan Brotherhood.
Yeah,
Because they
yeah,
got
they
fingers, they got tentacles.
far reach. Yeah.
Yes. So she takes the dogs, and she can't control them. They're growing up, they're getting older, they're puppies. They start pulling their leashes, pulling, she starts chaining them to the trees
Wow.
because on the farm they've eaten through their pens, they've eaten through everything. They're absolutely out of control. And she's writing back and forth with Paul Schneider. All that comes out in the trial. We see that, and he's saying to her, "You better get your handle on this. You better get more powerful food for them. She doesn't have the money. I can't afford it. You need this. You need power food. You need protein. This that." And ultimately, the dogs start eating her livestock. So as they get older, the female has puppies, and now she's got 6, 8 dogs running around, Press Canarios, and they are eating her chickens. They're killing her sheep. And at some point, they kill her daughter's cat. And at that point, the daughter's like, please, mom, we can't have these dogs. Oddly enough, Janet, who took the dogs, is attached to the dogs, even though they've killed her livestock, because she helped raise them. But she doesn't know what she's doing. She had no business taking these dogs, and Schneider
Right.
didn't care,
Right. And
right?
and and so they end up in this apartment complex, right? Living in an apartment.
Correct. Well, and how that happened. So Schneider finally realizes Janet cannot take care of these dogs. She doesn't have the money. She doesn't know what she's doing. It's a problem. And he gets his 2 lawyers, Marjorie Noel and Robert Noel, who they met through a case where they were representing a prison guard in Pelican Bay. So they were up there in Crescent City, and Paul Schneider was one of the witnesses. So they met him and became enamored with him. And Noel calls him a stand-up guy. This is a guy serving 3 terms of life without. He's stand-up, all right. I mean, please. I mean, this is the bizarre mentality of these people.
Right,
So
right.
he writes to the lawyers and says, "Look, I need you to get those dogs. She's not handling it correctly." And finally, they do. They go up to Hayfork, California, just hours up north, and they go to take the dogs, the 2 adults and the puppies. But they have a vet there because they're lawyers to give them like some kind of okay, like blessing on taking the dogs.
Sure. Sure.
The vet, Dr. Donald Martin, writes a letter saying these dogs are not fit to be around people, no less be brought into the heart of San Francisco.
Right. And caged up in an apartment complex.
But they shouldn't have been taken to any city. That's the vet. The vet has now said this to them, written it in writing. It's there in a letter. They don't care. They take the dogs. The puppies are sent down to LA to Aryan Brotherhood associates. They're guarding, meth labs. And the other 2 dogs they have in their apartment. Vane and Hera, both adults. And they think these are sweet, wonderful dogs. They're so happy. They're in love with no, they're in love with Paul Schneider. And they want to be married to him. Do you know about that part of the story?
No.
Okay. Well, that's why they adopted him. So that they could be family. They could be legal family, like as if they're married to him. I know.
What a true
Craziness.
crime story. I
It's,
mean,
oh. So now they've got the dogs and they're constantly reporting to Paul Schneider in the confidential legal mail. We're feeding him the power protein, the best this, the best steak, the best that. We've got him on this and that. And at one point, through all these attacks that these dogs have made throughout San Francisco, when I say attacks, nobody was killed. Dogs were hurt. At one point, Bain severed the finger off of Robert Noel completely, and he had to be taken to the emergency room and spend 4 days in a hospital getting his finger reattached.
shit.
Talk
Shit.
about knowing that you've got dangerous dogs. How do
Yeah.
you not know this?
You've got ticking time bombs in your house.
exactly.
And the moment they saw her, they just attacked her?
Well, no. So there's a buildup here. Let me go back a little bit. Now, these are dogs that are out of control to begin with. But
Okay.
somehow Nola and Nola are bringing them all around San Francisco to cafes. They're sitting there, and the dogs can be nice, except if they're around another dog or anything provokes them, then they're not nice. All right. They are so proud, Noel, the male, Robert Noel, so proud that these dogs are fierce and dangerous that Robert Noel writes a letter to Paul Schneider saying this: we got in the elevator and Bane marched in, and a timorous, mousy blonde was in there and almost had a heart attack. And he's thrilled about it. So at trial, Jim Hammer, the prosecutor, says to him, repeats that. Who was this timorous, mousy blonde? And he says, Diane Whipple. Okay. He later discovers who that was, but he did not care. So a few weeks prior to the actual mauling, the lethal mauling, she was bitten by Bane.
So there was a buildup. Yeah, there
There's a
was a
buildup.
buildup. There was a buildup.
Now, why, once this hit the news and people are seeing pictures of these owners and the dogs, everybody all over San Francisco starts calling animal care and control saying, they almost hurt my son. I had to grab my son away from the dogs. The mailman had to use his metal mail cart to push the dogs away. 40 incidents. Not everybody wanted to testify, but ultimately many of them did in the trial. They had a vicious and dangerous dog hearing, and the owners, Noel and Noller, spent all their time saying, you're all liars. You're liars. You're liars. Everybody's wrong. Meanwhile, they're trying to save Hera. The person who ran Animal Care and Control, Vicky Golbeck, who I dedicate the book to in addition to Diane Whipple, she said, if I had a dog that killed a human being, I would want to keep the dog alive.
Right, right, right.
Once
Right.
things like that happen, Red
Yeah,
Zone was the name of the book because Cesar Millan is the one who gave me that phrase in the beginning of his years as dog whisperer. He wasn't really known back then
love him.
yet. And they enter a red zone, they enter an area where once they've eaten and tasted blood, and now they're tasting the blood of humans, and
That's it. Once they get that taste. You,
it's you
that
can, but they still wanted to keep her. They're
yeah,
fighting to
unbelievable.
keep the female dog. Even though Marjorie Noller told police Hera was at the tugging at the pants of Diane Whipple, she's like, that's all she did. She just tugged the pants.
Let me ask you this. While you were doing this, writing the book, reporting on this, any run-ins with the Aryan Brotherhood? Were you ever, afraid or
I have to tell you, I am concerned at this moment with this book
wow.
because this is the first time that you're seeing what it is. You're not seeing
You're right,
in the
right,
original book that this was about the Aryan Brotherhood.
right, right,
So there's a reason that Janet and her daughter went into witness protection. However, I feel obligated to do this,
right.
and it's my mission to make stories like this known. And there are big things that happened out of this case that were positive that I want to get to,
Sure.
which is number one, Governor Gray Davis at the time in California closed a loophole saying that all owners of dogs can be criminally responsible and will be held criminally responsible for the actions of their dogs. That was a huge outcome. And the other huge outcome, Diane Whipple is gay, and her partner, Sharon Smith, went to sue for wrongful death. And at that time in 2001, there was no ability to do that. Gay marriage was not yet legal. Gay partner had no rights. And she fought for that with her civil attorney. And in July of that year, there was a legislative act that now allowed a gay partner to
Wow.
sue for wrongful
That's
death.
great.
And she did, and was awarded $1.5 million. But of course, Noel and Noller had nothing there in prison. But those were two big important outcomes of what happened to Diane Whipple.
Speaking of big important outcomes cases, I mean, I just want to get to a couple of the things that, you've covered throughout your career. You've always been at the forefront of these big Michael Jackson, Scott Peterson. I really want to ask you about Michael Peterson. Uh, the,
We should do a whole episode on that because the owl. We know about the owl.
The
All right, let me just
staircase.
say this before we move into the staircase. We can do that, but I want to say this, it's important. What is so crazy about Dog of War is the fact that these two lawyers not only were helping the associates of the Aryan Brotherhood, but they were also allegedly sleeping with the dogs. There's hints of bestiality in that story. And they were involved in this bizarre love triangle with the Aryan Brotherhood leader, where he was the prince and they were the king and queen. And there's all these medieval drawings. You'll see it in the book. Her standing in a cape, posing in the lobby. And I mean, she's hideous. But in the drawing Snyder's making of her, she looks like a vixen. It is insane, the story.
There's a lot deep psychological issues there, man.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. I know. This story is, of everything I've done, and as you say, I've done them all. Casey Anthony, you name it. I've been there, done it. This is the craziest story of all.
Well, I mean, yeah, just the psychology behind, you know, being in love with the dogs in that way is we
The
it,
dogs are biting your finger off, but you're still good.
it's sick. The
It's
sickness
so
involved.
sick. And these people, by the way, had started off as normal lawyers. There's a picture in there of them in black tie. They're going to the Getty Mansion for in Pacific Heights for fundraisers. They're going to the opera. They were those people, and then they turn into.
Where was the change in them? What happened? Who radicalized them?
I think what happened. They started to, I allude to this in the book. Noelle is very arrogant, and so is she. Nola. And they started to insult people. So, for example, they're at the Getty's mansion and they're standing in front of an ice sculpture. And Noel is saying to his friends, well, if she's so interested in helping the homeless, why doesn't she just open the mansion up to them? Smart ass. And as
Uh,
more and more of this went on, people started, they lost clients, they lost society, they
was there
lost
drugs
touch.
involved? Were they doing
No, no, no,
no,
no, they're
no,
not doing drugs. You
no
would hope, you
cocaine?
would
No.
think maybe there's some reason. No, no, no. They
Wow.
just wanted to go after as much money as they could, and they started with representing the inmates
Money.
and prison guards. And when they met Schneider, he became their Svengali. And these dogs and the dog of war, Bane was the number one species for the dog of war scheme. El
Wow.
Supremo Bane. They're holding Bane in a small apartment that's 600 square feet. Bane and two big people had no business having those dogs there. And they knew it. They literally, when they first got the dogs, they both looked the same. They would take Bane out alone and then later Hera out alone to pretend they have one dog. And they were able to fool their neighbors.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting. Interesting.
And ultimately, what happened was because they're so spurious in their lawsuits, they're threatening everyone with lawsuits. Nobody reported. This dog attacked David Moser, one of the neighbors, and jumped and lunged at. Nobody's reporting it. Why? It turns out, here's a little tidbit. This is how spurious they are. They needed a pipe repaired in their apartment. They don't own it. They're renters. And a man comes who's German, and he's fixing the pipe, and he has a German accent. So Noel, who's Jewish, but now not Jewish anymore, he's in Aryan Brotherhood, but whatever, he is offended by the German accent that he feels this plumber is doing on purpose to insult him. So he sues the management of the apartment building and the owner because he's been offended by the German accent of this plumber.
So wait a minute. So you have a Jewish guy who joins
Mhm.
the Aryan Brotherhood,
Correct. Right. I
and
know.
they
It's
allowed him
insane.
in.
And because it's the leader. He doesn't care. He just needs people that are going to take these dogs on. That's it. He doesn't
Wow.
care. They don't care. They're monsters. But think about this. If you know in your building that happened, of course people are going to know living in the building. Like, who are these people? What's these dogs? What's going on? And you find out, oh, they sued the building because a plumber said something with a wrong accent. You're not going to say anything. And they didn't.
Yeah. 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 You're scared.
So
It's
you're
intimidation.
scared.
It's
Who? Yeah.
intimidation. Yeah.
Before they even had the dogs, it's
Yeah.
intimidating. Now they
Yeah.
have the dogs. So eventually they start taking both dogs out at the same time because, hey, We don't care. No one's going to touch us.
Um, so, okay, now back just one question on Michael Peterson, and then we'll
You
move
got
on
it.
to some of the other. Did he do it?
Absolutely.
1,000%, I believe he did it. I'm glad you
There is
said that.
no I was at the trial, okay? I was the person who wrote on the holding cell wall, "Welcome, Michael Peterson." I got the deputies to let me in there.
Uh,
The judge, nobody after the fact believed that he would actually get found guilty. I believed with all my heart, this man's going to go away for murder. And he did. And I interviewed him for my show.
That's right. I'll mention it in when my introduction, but True Crime with Aphrodite Jones ran for 6 seasons on Investigation Discovery, and it's on Discovery Plus now, right? Well,
Yes. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
also like you can get it on Amazon, YouTube TV, Prime, various places. Yeah.
yeah. They're rolling out those shows. My show as well on all these things. I think I got a royalty check from my production company for $39 last year.
Yeah, I got one for $34.
Yeah,
Isn't that wonderful? People think we're making all this money. Well, no, not really.
yeah, no, but True Crime with Aphrodite Jones. Well, I think we were on at the same time at one point, but you
Yes, you
you
were.
you covered a lot of those big cases on that
I
show,
did.
and
Yes.
and I remember, and you wrote a book about Peterson as well, right? What's the
I
name of the
wrote the
book?
book about Michael Peterson called The Perfect Husband.
That's
Yes.
right, that's right. And yeah, I mean, there's no way he did not do this, and I think one of the things I bang on a lot about in the last couple of years is that you know, the internet has created a space for if I say yes, you say no, where, especially with these big cases, uh, people just want to say no, he didn't, and create a conspiracy where there wasn't,
Right.
any sort of. I mean, because a rational person looks at the Peterson case and says, "Well, of course he killed her." I mean, and the jury believed it, right? So,
Well, so here's the thing, too. Elizabeth Ratliff, his friend in Germany, fell down the stairs and died
right,
in
that was a
1986.
big part of this.
Okay, so you don't have two women falling down staircases, dying at the bottom of the staircase, and Michael Peterson has a monetary interest in both of those women. I don't think people realize that Elizabeth Ratliff had made Michael Peterson her attorney, power of attorney, and when she died, he inherited the kids, and he acts like, "Oh, why would I kill anybody? I had to take on this responsibility." No, those two girls, the
That's
Ratliff girls,
huge. That's huge. When
that
they
that he that
discovered that, it's impossible that he's at the bottom of the stairs of two women who died and he gains finance. It's impossible.
Exactly, exactly. But people don't realize he gained financially from Elizabeth Ratliff. It's
Right,
not in any
right.
of the. It's not in the staircase. It's not in the documentary. It's in my book, because those two young children had stipends from the military because their father was military and died in action. Right.
I think I want to make a good point about, because you said it was in your book and it's not. I want to make a point about something that you know, people see a documentary on HBO or wherever, Netflix, and they think, whoa, that's the story. But a documentary can be crafted any way you want to craft it. You know that, making your show.
Absolutely.
So read the fucking book. Read the book about the case where everything's laid out because you miss stuff. Same thing with Making a Murderer. They
Yeah.
left
Exactly.
key stuff out, right?
Hmm.
And that's lying by omission. I mean, if you know it, right, it's lying by omission. But anyway, I just
Sure.
wanted to say that the perfect husband, it laid everything out. Did
Right.
did wasn't there a Lifetime movie? Was there a Lifetime?
Yes, there was a Lifetime movie. Treat Williams played Michael Peterson based on my book called The Staircase
I
Murders.
remember Treat Williams playing it. That's right. That's right. He played every bad
Yes,
guy, Treat Williams, for a while, and then
he
it was
did.
Eric Roberts. He played every
Hmm.
bad guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
But anyway, um, yeah, I mean, and if you look at Michael Peterson in the documentary, where they had access to him, you could tell he's a smug, narcissistic, He didn't want to work. He wanted to be taken care of. He's out there getting with all these different guys. I mean, it's he's the classic spousal killer. He's the classic,
He is. He's a psycho killer.
yeah, he
He
is.
he made money by killing Elizabeth Ratliff, and
Yep,
years later, he had one book that sold for a lot of money. He plunked that down on the mansion he had, and
yep.
after that, he had no income whatsoever. So Kathleen Peterson was working day and night. She was a head executive at Nortel Networks. She worked so hard that they literally named a conference room after her, which is unheard of.
And then she finds out through all that hard work, well, she's working nights at the, he's running around town with men. I mean, it's like, and he wanted to be that. He wanted to be that writer who was rich. He wanted the whole facade of it
Right.
without doing any of the work, without really putting in the effort. And when he couldn't get it, and the finances started crashing, he knew he knew that my answer to it all is to do what
Right.
I did before. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
previous
Exactly.
behavior is a good indicator of future behavior, and you see it in this case.
You see it in this case, and the thing is that lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place, right? He was stood to inherit a $1.2 million insurance policy. Ultimately, Kathleen's daughter got that, but he was going to be getting that. They were in debt in hundreds of thousands of dollars. They couldn't afford the mansion anymore. Kathleen wanted to sell it because they were living without a shower in their master bedroom. I mean, things were just falling apart. There wasn't enough money. She's paying for 4 kids to go to college. He's
Right,
doing nothing. He's
right,
at the
right.
gym working out and making appointments with gay guys to meet up, hook up.
What a good guy.
And he hired a gay prostitute who testified in the
Right,
trial.
right, right, right,
So,
right, right.
of course, then what the staircase film makes it out to be that, oh, he was, that he didn't do anything wrong. Everybody knew he was gay. Everybody knew he was bisexual. Peterson told me that himself. Oh, my wife knew about this.
And,
No,
and
she
then
didn't.
and then of course you add this bizarre stupid owl theory to the whole thing, and it tries to throw the whole thing off kilter, which a lot of the conspiracies, that's their only aim, right, is to
Right. Well,
just
and here's part of how this really worked out. First of all, Margaret and Martha Ratliff, who are Elizabeth's daughters that he adopted, right? But he never legally adopted them, by the way. That's why
right,
they have a different
right,
last name.
right,
Because he's a slime ball. But they would have to believe that he killed their biological mother in Germany when they were toddlers, and then he killed their stepmother who raised them. They can't do that. So they're in Stockholm syndrome.
right, 100%,
So they
100%.
fully support him in the documentary, The
Yep.
Staircase.
Yep. Yep. So they
With
they
the
need to find a reason, right? You need to find a reason, because you can't say I've been living with a murderer. I mean,
right.
you
My
know, you,
father killed both my mothers.
yep, yep,
You
yep,
can't live with that.
yeah.
So they're avid supporters. And at the time that they filmed The Staircase, so were his 2 sons, um, the Peterson boys from his first marriage. Those sons walked away from this now, but the daughters have not. The
So
Ratliff
the
girls.
sons have walked away.
Yeah. And one
Interesting.
of them now calls his father a psycho killer and blames him for killing his biological mother and has gone off into conspiracy land.
Got it.
All right.
Got
So
it. Yeah.
that's another crazy coming on. But the owl came to be because the next door neighbor who I interviewed lived in his mansion, grew up there, born, raised, and now is a grown adult in the same house. All right. And when I was doing my show the first season, the first interview they booked me for was with this guy, Larry Pollard, who is the neighbor. Now, Larry Pollard, I did a signing at Duke University for A Perfect Husband in 2004. And it was a big to do. And then they had, after the talk, and I did the signing, the reading, they had like finger cakes and petit fours and a whole scenario of Duke University style for the people that were there. And everybody's walking around. I'm signing books. All of a sudden, a claw comes out onto my desk. A talon. I'm looking down signing. I'm like, what? It's the owl talon. So this man's trying to tell me now at my book signing, with all these people waiting to have books signed and having their tea and crumpets, whatever's going. He wants me to hear about this owl. I'm like,
He pushed it on everybody.
he pushed. So now, when I'm doing my show, rolling forward, that was my book. My show is 5 years later. They booked me with him as the first interview. I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't even know why I'm interviewing this guy. He's a nut. I'm there at his house. And that's when I realized when I got into his house, I understood the mentality of this guy. He can't live with the idea that where he was born and raised, his fancy neighborhood, his elite neighborhood, that he's living next door to a murderer.
There's an odd, I guess it's not odd, but there is a social and a class type of situation down there that you don't see up here where we live in New England and New York. That is almost like look the other way. Look the other way. I have to find an alternative because if not, I have to believe that, right?
Right.
And so and he pushes this owl theory on anybody who will listen.
And, and here's the thing. So when I did my show, I asked Judge Hudson about it, and he just looked at me like, are you out of your mind? It never entered trial. But this is the audacity of David Rudolph, the attorney, the defense attorney, who's the star along with Peterson in The Staircase, right? Rudolph joined forces with the defense attorney from Making a Murderer, and they went on tour around the world, in London and here,
right.
there, wherever. And they came to New York to the Westbury Music Fair, and I decided to go. I sat in the on the end because I didn't want him to see me. I wanted to see and I actually taped part of it. David Rudolph had the audacity to get, after he was done presenting everything, the biggest question was, what about the owl? Everybody asked about the owl. He had a whole presentation ready and showed an entire presentation as how owls can kill a human being and how you have to worry about these type of creatures and these animals that I mean, really? That's who he is. You look in my book, you look at my presentation. I did one at CrimeCon 2 years ago with all the color photos of Kathleen Peterson in The Staircase and the spatter.
The spatter going up. Yeah, I mean
going up and so fine.
Yeah,
Fine droplets.
The
Because
spatter
when I
tells
get
the story.
attacked by an owl, Matt, the first thing I do is run in the house and run upstairs.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I'm attacked.
yeah. You go in,
Except one little problem. Her cartilage was
her hyoid
broken.
bone. Yeah,
It wasn't the hyoid bone. It was the
cartilage.
It was broken. So he strangled her.
Absolutely, he did. Absolutely. And then he pushed her down the stairs to try to make it look like she fell because he knew how to do that from the last time.
Exactly. He threw her down the stairs. He somehow hit her with a light object so that he didn't crack her skull, but made her bleed. And yes, he strangled her.
There was The Staircase that was out, and then Netflix had a dramatized version of it where they showed
No, HBO Max did.
HBO Max.
Colin Firth played Michael Peterson.
They showed what he did. That's what happened. I mean,
yes, but the problem with that, because Colin Firth was so brilliant, I love that actor.
He played him perfectly.
Right, The King's Speech. Oh my God, he was incredible. Toni Collette played Kathleen Peterson.
Yeah,
they both got nominated for Emmys. All right, because they were so great. However, the filmmaker made a big mistake, and that was rather than just giving two theories, it was either she fell or he killed her. No, he had the third theory, which was the owl. He entertained it in the show, in the series. And when people saw that, as much as people are conspiracy theorists and like to believe, they now are thinking, this is crap.
I agree.
And hence, no, there was no more attention to that documentary, the series,
right,
which was also called The Staircase.
Right. No, you're right. I agree. Why don't we talk about a little bit about, let's end on let's talk about one of your big books, All She Wanted, which people watching, listening may know as Boys Don't Cry, the Academy Award winning film. So tell me a little bit. I mean, you brought that story to light. I mean, it was you. It
Right,
was nobody else. That
right.
was 1995, 96, something like.
93, 93. Yeah,
Yeah,
it came out in 94, the book. So, at that time when this happened, transgender was not even a word in the
right,
American language. It was
right.
not a word in America. We didn't have it.
Ooh, I think it
Um,
was transsexual was the word. If you
transsexual is the medical term.
right,
So when you read that book, I refer to Brandon and Teena as transgendered because there was no word transgender.
right,
Also, in that particular case, Brandon became a boy, but then went back to being a girl with his mom. So there was a constant switch. It wasn't a full on change. He would be a girl, come back and be Teena. Then he would go to a different city and be Brandon. Then he'd be a girl again. And he was raped. So it was a she who was raped by these two men, right?
right,
And there was
right.
a rape case against them. And now Brandon is put in prison, put in a holding cell because they find out that there's checks forging that happen, and they're waiting to see. Well, but Brandon is in the female cell. Why? So it's an unusual moment in time in terms of the beginning of a transgender
It
movement.
is. It is. It really groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking. And what happened was after I wrote the book, first of all, I had helped the transgender community come together, and I did a talk for them about the triple homicide, and they were throwing tomatoes at me practically. They're like, get off the stage. We don't want to hear about a triple homicide because it was a triple homicide. This is all about Brand and Teena. This is all about transgender. This is all about what they didn't have a word for it yet. Um, and I'm just like, okay, but the trial was two people who murdered Teena Brandon, the female. That, we can't ignore that reality. But no, no, they ignored the reality. This is back then. So they hate me. They have never given credit to me for
Different
having
time.
written the only book that's
Yep.
about a transgender murder,
Yep.
the first book about a transgender
Yep.
murder in this country of
Yep.
any kind of high profile.
Yep.
So I have no,
I wrote one in the 2000s, early 2000, late 2000s,
yeah,
and I interviewed her. Um, but
her who?
her name is Von Lee Titlow, if you can believe it. That's her real name, Von Lee
Okay,
Titlow, and
okay.
she
I
was
can't make fun of anybody's names, not with my name.
she was born male, and she had trans from here up, not the
Hmm.
and she ran an escort service in Denver for a while, and then she moved in with her aunt, and the theory was that she killed her uncle with her aunt in order to get the money to finish the operation, but she wasn't even involved. She's out of
I
prison
see.
now. Yeah,
Wow.
but
Wow.
anyway, I mean, this story, Boys Don't Cry. I mean, that film really brought it to the attention of the big public, right?
Right. And Hilary Swank, it made her a star. That was her
Made her a
first film.
star.
And so the thing is, years later, and I don't like to look at any comments about my stuff on,
Yeah,
the
can't,
socials.
can't.
Right? I can't because I can have 100 beautiful comments and I have one that's mean, and then that's all I think about,
That
and I
keeps you
can't
up
do
at
it.
night. The one, the
Exactly.
one out of a
One thing,
hundred.
and it stays for years and years. So I don't really look. I don't look. I can't. But
Can't.
one day, for whatever reason, a few years back, I did look. It's got to be. Oh, that was 10 years ago ish. I
Yeah,
looked and I saw somebody say, "But she has no idea what she's doing. Transgender. All she wanted. This is a male. I would never touch a book. All she wanted." Well, the book was published by Simon Schuster, and it said SHE, all she wanted, with he being a different color than the S. So it's she, he, because back then that's what people called people who were transsexual, a she, he, or a heesh, or a sheesh. No one knew what to call
yeah. There
transsexuals,
was
and there
no
was
they,
no word.
them. There was none of that stuff.
Nothing, none of that. So I realized, wow, this person is right. This is after Bruce Jenner became Caitlyn, and I realized, okay, there. I see this now. I need to change the title of that book to All He Wanted, which I did. And then I wrote an entire new author's note explaining how and why that happened
Excellent, excellent. Yeah,
in the book.
yeah,
So it's now All He Wanted.
that's
And because I
excellent.
did that, Matt, that was what enabled me to say, I'm going to change the title to my book, Red Zone to Dog of War.
Dog of War. No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did
I
because
mean,
you're
it's
right.
unheard of, though. Who changes titles? I don't know anyone, but it came from the transgender thing.
I
And
there's
then,
titles I wish I could change. Trust me, but but as you know, we don't get to choose the titles some of the time.
well,
So
I don't get to choose the titles, but now I'm self-publishing, so I get
yeah,
to choose the titles, which is
yeah,
why I am bringing this out.
yeah,
I have the rights to this for
yeah.
Dog of War, and I have another book as well that I'm going to redo
Which
and
one?
rename, The Embrace.
Excellent,
Yeah, because it
excellent,
doesn't tell you what that story's about,
excellent.
and so yeah.
I just released a podcast with Sony Music called Fatal Fantasy, and it deals with some of the vampire stuff. It deals
Well,
with
let's talk
the
about that
culture.
when let me come back on your podcast and talk about
Absolutely.
it. I'm
Well,
hoping to release that at the end of August.
good, good. Then I'll have you back on right before, and then I'll get it out right as it's coming out.
Awesome.
But I want to thank you for today and taking the time, and just let me we'll say goodbye, and I'll stop this.